Yeah. How are you, mate? Tuesday
I'm
night.
splendid. This is a night session, Tuesday night session. Two
Night
chaps at
session.
night.
You've got that warm evening glow about you, I must say.
Well, that's because I already have. I'm 3 beers in. Maybe that's what it is. But it's also that my studio
Yes.
has natural light, of which there is none right now. So all the light that is shining is here artificial. That's why I glimmer a little bit, maybe.
Glimmer. Glisten.
Perhaps glisten and glimmer from the inside. I radiate.
How are you, everybody, wherever you are in the world? This is Two Chaps, Many Cultures, coming to you on a Tuesday evening from where we are. But, of course, wherever you are, it might be different. And our today's guest, it's certainly very different. And that's the reason why we are coming to you at this wonderful hour. And today we're talking about brain science, which, of course, is something that I've never really studied. And I don't know about you, fine sir, but there is apparently a relationship between brain science and culture. Of course, we do touch on that in the work that we do. And we try and lead people into some understanding about how their brain might work and how it influences all that. But I'm not going to steal any of their thunder. We have a wonderful expert to tell us all about this. My welcome to Two Chaps, Many Cultures. How are you?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Did you just call me expert?
Yeah. And as you know, in Australia, we call an expert an expert
right now.
an expert is a drip under pressure. So this is no pressure, of course. You've got a global audience here.
Ooh. And for you, it's not Tuesday anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's just an expert. They know. Sorry, say again.
I said, for you, it's not a Tuesday anyway, so you're already a day ahead of us. So it's all no pressure for you then. It's the pressure is only on the Tuesday side.
Yep. Thanks for trying to put the pressure off me.
Well, welcome. And where are you located? Of course, tell us where you're coming from, tuning in from in Australia.
Well, right now I'm located in Australia, in Queensland, Townsville. So a very industrial city, but I just told Brett and Christian that I'm 20 meters away from the beach. So that's really good positive side of it. I don't know where's home, so don't ask me where I come from. That's a very difficult question. I'm based in Sydney and in Amsterdam. So that's probably the two cities that I stay the most. Usually I would come back to Vietnam and other cities in Asia very, very often. But Sydney and Amsterdam, I would say that's probably my best cities. So that's the story of me. And with the whole pandemic going on, I have no idea why I'm here. I'm still trying to figure out why I'm here. I don't know. I should be in Sydney, you know.
It's tough. Australia is one of those countries where they're being very strict with movement of people. So that's something that we need to kind of set up in the context. If you're watching this show 10 years in the future, that's what's going on. If anybody's watching. So tell us. What I tell people. The first time that I met you, Mai, was at a conference in Dublin, okay, and at the CETA Europa conference, where you did a joint keynote with another, and I forget who it was, but at the moment we're not going to try and dig that up. But it was interesting. Because I consider the brain of obviously, well, not I consider. I mean, I just know and from the little I know that the brain has a huge influence on how we see other people, and of course, so I would tell you that I use this story all the time. When I sat there in my seat, I looked at the two people that were about to present, and what I saw was a very kind of confident-looking male figure in one seat. And from the other side, a rather small Asian-looking lady, obviously very professionally dressed. But I thought, well, that my perception is that I'm going to get a storm of knowledge from the man, and I may have to struggle to listen to Mai. This was not the case when
Oh,
you.
I don't know you as that sexist, Brad.
No, but it is. I am. But this is exactly. I'm just telling you. I am just as susceptible to biases as anything. All right. And so, but of course, you change.
Yeah.
That changed as soon as you got up and had your turn to speak, because then it's like, oh wow, okay, I'm here to learn. I better sit my backside down. Here comes a person with such a depth of knowledge about something that I obviously have no knowledge of, but it comes in a way that was very, very confident, very, very forceful is the wrong word, but informative in a very direct way. And so my biases were complete. Oh wow. And ever since we've got to know each other, that's what I've appreciated about you. So tell us about what is going on in my simple sexist male brain that happens when we do that.
I so much love your honesty, Brett. I mean, there's not so many people who can be so honest about our biases, about our assumption, about our stereotypes. And I love that. I love it when people just say that this is my stereotype, this is my bias, this is my assumption. I know it, I'm aware of it, and I'm more than willing to work on it. And that is the right attitude. I mean, it's pointless to deny that we have biases and we have stereotypes, because if we deny that they exist, we deny evolution. We deny the very mechanism that can help us to survive. And if you deny that, then there's no way that you can recognize that they exist and then you can work on them. So I think it's probably the most important thing when we do bias training is to acknowledge that stereotypes are important. It's so useful for us to survive. And I normally use the 3 dots. So if I give you the 3 dot, like this, like 1, 2, 3, I would ask my student and my clients, what do you see? And some of them say a triangle, and some of them say, oh, but that's a 3 dots. But most of them would say a triangle. So it's a really simple exercise to let people know that our brain automatically connect the dots together and make a triangle, because 3 dots make no sense. So you need to give them a triangle. Our brain is a pattern making machine. It tries to make pattern out of everything, because if you do not make a pattern, then your brain has to try to do all the cognitive processes to understand what is really going on. And if it takes so much time to do that, then probably it's too late. Now, if you see, for example, in the old time when our ancestors walked in the bush, for example, they would hear a sound in the bush. They would hear, there's a big bush, first of all, and then they are alone. And this area is known to have a lot of predators. Now, these are the 3 dots, and if our ancestor had not made that quick connection when they heard the sound, it's probably too late, and that would cost them their life. And if that happened, we would not be here talking about culture and all the stereotype, right? So they did the right thing. That's why we survive, and that's why we are here. And that stereotype, we just make pattern out of everything. Now, the problem is the patterns in the modern world can be wrong, can be corrupted, because the dots that we are given can be corrupted. So, for example, if you, you are in America. So I'm going to take an American example. What is that? Trayvon Martin, right? The black teenage who walked around a neighborhood with a hoodie. So the dot is that he's young, he's black, and he's wearing a hoodie. If we are not influenced and if we are not corrupted by the kind of pattern and triangle that the society or the media is giving us, then we just say, wow, that's the young black teenager wearing a hoodie walking in the neighborhood. But because the triangle that the media and the society is giving us is that if he's young, if he's black, and if he's wearing a hoodie, you need to make a triangle that he's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And that triangle is formed so quickly, so automatically. Now, I'm not sure if in the case of Trayvon Martin, it was formed automatically, because the guard did actually follow him for a while called the police a few times, described how he looked like. So it was probably not automatic. He was probably there's some motivation behind it. But he's making a triangle, and that triangle is influenced by the society, by the culture, by the media. And that is why I said that sometimes the triangle in the modern time can be corrupted. And if it's corrupted, then it's going to lead to corrupted behavior. And the corrupted behavior ended up with a murder of a teenage person. So that's a very clear example, a very simple one that I like to share with you. And I do that a lot with my students and my clients. And immediately people should think, yes, we have to. I mean, we make triangle, we make pattern out of basically everything. If my partner is coming home late, then I make a triangle, a pattern of something terrible is happening, you know. It's not just making triangle. We also make a bad triangle as well, because the brain is very biased toward negative prediction. Why? It's also survival. I mean, if everything's good, it's fine. I'm good. There's not much to gain from that. I'm a little bit happier. But if I know that something is going on, not in the way it's supposed to be, something's negative, something wrong is happening, then I need to prepare my whole body to have that kind of fight or flight, to prepare for the worst case scenario. So the brain is not just making triangle, making pattern. The brain is also trying to be biased to shape us towards a negative direction of making that triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, hello. Portland.
May I ask a question real quick, May?
Sure, go ahead.
So is there a way, and this is something that I've been practicing with myself and in my family and with clients and friends. So obviously I'm aware that I have biases. I'm aware that people around me have biases. And I'm aware that I sometimes make triangles that are supportive in my current situation. And sometimes I catch myself making a triangle that is non-supportive. So that split second where my Homo sapiens brain overrides my reptilian brain and says, hey, wait a second, you just made a triangle that's not helping you. How can we become more aware of our weird triangle making? Can we suspend the knee-jerk reaction?
Yeah. Not reptilian brain. Sorry, I'm being a nerd here.
Yeah, whatever brain it is.
Yeah. Yes, Christian, really good question. I mean, like most of the bias training stop right there, explaining to people why we have biases, the consequence of biases, making people all upset, and then they leave the training saying, "Oh, if it happens to everyone, and we cannot help it, there's no need to deal with that." You know, so that's the kind of the consequence that we have with wrong and ineffective bias training. So it's really important that we have to emphasize and spend a big part of bias training to point out that it is possible for us to be aware of it. You have to be aware of that and to fix it and to even change it and even swap it. So this is a really interesting study that I cited in my lecture a lot. We have the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking, let's say the headquarters of our brain. This is a really important part of the brain. And the stereotype and the bias, they are automatic. We cannot control it. The prefrontal cortex has nothing to do with that, cannot help it. But the prefrontal cortex has the possibility and the capacity to stop it and to even repress it. So in many of those brain imaging or neuroscience studies that I cited, they have that pattern going on of being formed in the brain, and then you have the prefrontal cortex trying to stop it, and that's why the reaction time is longer. If you just follow your biases and stereotypes, then your reaction time is really quick, probably like I don't know, but it's really short. It's just bam, done, black, probably negative. And then if you do have the prefrontal cortex involved, then the reaction time is much longer, meaning that it is trying to deal with, we don't know if it's repressing or not, or stereotype or not, but it is trying to deal with the triangle or the pattern or the bias being formed in our brain. So yes, we can stop it because of the prefrontal cortex. So that's the really important point. And the second point is how. And there are so many strategies. I even have a lecture online. If we can share with our audience later on how to do that. But one way to do it very effectively, and I do that all the time, is using counter stereotypes. So in this very interesting study, they show people images and picture of counter stereotype. For example, this is Christian. Hi, Christian. He's a makeup artist. Makeup artist. And this is Brett. He's a nurse. I don't know. This is she is a bricklayer. So all counter stereotypes, and it just show to people, and you ask them to reflect on that. Like, what do you see? Who is this person? Just a very, very quick, a few seconds, and then after that, you let these people do the bias test. So I think it's the IAT test, the implicit association test, very famous from Harvard, if I remember correctly. And amazingly, just a few seconds of looking at these photos, at these images, and reflect on that for a few seconds, these people actually have a reduced bias as shown by the test. We don't know. I mean, of course, the test has a lot of criticism as well. But of course, there's a change after being shown some counter stereotypes. So I do this a lot. Probably Brett knows that I spent about a year in the Middle East. I started that journey because I wanted to confront my own stereotype. So when I was in Oman, for example, I found that the men there are responsible for taking care of the babies. They always carry the babies. You will see men carrying babies everywhere on the street, in the supermarket, in the market, in the hospital, even in the hospital. The poster of the hospital depicted a family, and the man was carrying a baby. That's the official poster of the hospital. So I took a photo of that and I put on my laptop the whole time. For 2 years, these are the counter stereotype images I have on my desktop, and they remind me of the stupid stereotype that I have about men in the Middle East. So we can do a lot of other things as well. We can invite people who defeat the stereotype, who do not reflect the stereotype, to talk at our companies. We can talk about them, follow them, read about them. The more we are exposed to counter stereotype, the more likely we are going to overcome them and even switch. So that's one good strategy that I can share with you.
Brett, go ahead.
Oh, it's obviously difficult when we've always been, the culture is always driven by natural stereotypical images, even in children's literature and books and things like that, so it's difficult there's not many books out there that will offer a counter to a stereotype for a child, right? And so we're talking about it as adults, but I guess it's important, just as somebody, as a parent, I kind of probably have done not a very good job of, reversing those stereotypes for my children, because they've been reinforced by the ease of all the literature that we've got available in that's offered in books for kids and things like that. So just a comment on that. That's all.
I mean, who can judge that you are good parents or not? I mean, we are one force in raising the kids, but the society, the schools, and I've read that it's actually more important are the people that they hang around with. So friends have more influence and impact than education and upbringing in the family. I mean, they reflect who they hang around with, and that's why we may have very different children, even they grow up in the same family. Yeah.
You said something earlier that when our headquarter of our brain, the headquarter of the head, takes over, then the processing time will be longer than the quick knee-jerk reaction.
Absolutely.
So does that mean that when we process longer, that our outward behavior, because the processing is an internal process, right? So nobody actually sees what's going on. So only my outward behavior might show that I am still processing. And that could be, and that's, I'm trying to phrase that in a question. Does that mean that in a conversation, in an interaction with each other, I would pause, I would not speak, I would maybe take a second or longer to consider my words in how I respond to the situation. Is that what it takes?
Christian, really good question. The thing is that is a kind of an interaction process. So yes, at the beginning, when you have a stereotype and when you have an issue that you need to overcome, you need to conquer, then the longer processing time means that you are dealing with it. But also, just remember, sometimes the longer processing time, just mean that, okay, I have no stereotype, but I'm just dealing with it. I'm recognizing it. So it doesn't mean that you are overcoming it all the time. Anyway, just make it really simple. When you have an issue with it or when you are dealing with it, the processing time is probably longer. However, we cannot just spend a little bit more time on everything because that's not effective. Our life has to be automatic at some point. And probably most of what we are doing in our life is a routine, it's automatic. We do not wake up and try to think, okay, which leg we're going to put on the ground first. We are not brushing our teeth and saying, okay, focusing on it, which teeth first. So much of our life has to be automatic, even with our decision making. A lot of things that I'm doing is automatic. What I'm doing right now is automatic as well. I'm not thinking of what I'm going to say to you, because things that I already know. So we need some efficiencies, we need some effectiveness, we need some some flow in our execution of our everyday life. And the point is that execution, that beautiful flow that we have every day, does that have a consequence? If it has a consequence, then we need to stop and change it. And the changing is taking more responding time. And then we need to train it. We need to practice. We need to repeat it again and again and again until that processing time has become shorter and shorter and shorter and become automatic. And the flow that used to have consequence at the beginning now has changed to a new flow that has beautiful positive result.
Right.
It's the same like what we do with children all the time. Potty training, riding a bike. We need to train our brain in a way that in the end is automatic with kindness. It's automatic with empathy. It's automatic with good consequence for us and for the people around us.
So my heresy question then is, as we're now in 2020 and most of us live in societies where, as you said, we don't have time to waste on contemplation because we need to be efficient in order for us to function in present day societies. We have developed routines and automaticism or whatever. English is not my first language. You know what I'm talking about. And it's late. So as the environment around us has developed at rapid speed in the last 100 years or 150 years, since the beginning of industrialization, the processing power of computers has, it's not just a hockey stick curve, it's like a rocket launch, right?
Yeah.
Our brains have not developed at that speed, right? So here's the heresy, my question. Are our brains equipped to keep up with the speed in which we function?
I love your question, Christian. That's so, anyone who's speaking would be very, very fortunate to have you in the audience. So just a second.
But because I give you the triggers.
It's like a really good question, and it's a kind of question that you can. It's not. It's challenging to answer. It's not black and white, and it's just very practical. By the way, back to your very good question. Is our brain equipped to do that? That's a million-dollar question. People are still talking about that. Of course, it's a question. We know that our brain is still the same structure. That we know for sure. It's the bloody same structure. The way it is functioning is also the same thing as well. It has the same mechanism, like stereotype, making triangle, making pattern is the same mechanism as if we are still living on the savannah, like our ancestors thousands and thousands of years ago. So when it comes to structure, when it comes to the mechanism that is working, the way that is functioning, it's still the same thing. However, there are a few good arguments for that, and I don't know that this is my argument, but I'm kind of I can agree with that. So, for example, when you talk about the brain size, we at the beginning, people tend to think that because men have bigger brains than women, so that's why bigger brain tends to, result in probably more intelligence and better capacity to do a certain thing. And it turned out that size is not the only thing that we are looking at. It's actually about the connection. It's about the connection in the brain. So we have about 100 billion neurons. It's not about the number of neurons. It's about how they connected with each other and how they folded together, because our brain has, groups as well. So it's folded in a smaller one or a bigger one. It doesn't matter, but how it's connected. We have also people who had a very unfortunate accident in their life or unfortunate diseases in their life, and half of their brain was removed. And somehow, amazingly, they still had a very normal life. So it's not really about the size or the number of neurons. It's about the way that they work with each other. It's about how we work with each other. And that's probably a very good argument that, okay, we still have the same bloody brain with the same structure and the same functioning and mechanism and everything. But we can actually have a different way of dealing with that. So it's the methodology that they work instead of how they are formed autonomically. It's called brain plasticity, and it's a buzzword these days. We may have, and I would like to just point out, yesterday I was talking about neurosexism, starting with Brett talking about his sexism. It's about neurosexism.
You're not getting away from that, Brett. You're not. No. It's going to follow you.
Anyway, neurosexism is a serious problem in the academy and in popular press. Okay, popular press, I'm not even talking about that. I mean, we have, what's that book? Men from Mars?
Women from Venus, men from Mars, women from Venus. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just awful book, and I don't know why it's so popular. It should not be popular anymore. No, it was written in 1992. Anyway.
Was it written by a man, perhaps?
No doubt.
Yes.
Yes, there we go.
Sorry. But it shouldn't be popular anymore with all the advances that we have in neuroscience and in science in general. Anyway, even in academia, we also have neurosexism. You have kind of like, I show people this brain scan where there's more brain connectivity in a man, within each hemisphere. So this is half, and for the men, it goes like this. And for women, the brain connectivity goes like this, crossing between hemisphere. That's brain connectivity. And then the researcher went on to suggest that the man and the woman's brains are designed, and I emphasize this, designed and structured to have or to be superior in a certain behaviors. So for the men, it's motor task, and for the women, it's linguistic and all this kind of communication and intuition. Now, the brain scans do not lie. Yes, these people who went into the brain scanner, they do have that brain connectivity within and cross hemisphere. However, the conclusion and the interpretation go too far. And that is happening in this academic paper, because we're talking about brain connectivity, which is something that you can change, that brain plasticity. If I ask you to do millions of jobs every day, at the same time, in the end, after a certain period of time, your brain will have the brain connectivity between across hemisphere as well. That's called brain plasticity. I mean, we can even change the brain structure. So I'm talking about two different things. Brain connectivity, which is very easy to change, extremely easy to change. We also talk about brain structure. So the size of the brain, the size of the gray matter or the white matter, they can change as well. So this is a very phenomenal study of the UK or the English taxi drivers. So for those who have been working in the field for a very long time, part of their hippocampus also grow bigger and the other parts grow smaller. So the structure is so changing as well as a result of your behavior. So it's completely contra. And if you come out with this kind of study supporting your confirmative bias of that this is the solid evidence that men and women are different in biology, and that is why men and women should do different things. And I saw that in LinkedIn as well. I saw an executive using this study to advocate for women in management, and he said that because women have different brain, they're better with communication and negotiation and leadership. That's why they should be in management. And I think that's, I'm sorry, bullshit. We don't have different brain. I'm sorry. We're just raised in a different way. We are not born that way. We have become that way. And if you want women in the management, you should not use that kind of argument, because that's gonna make men angry. And that's nothing we can do, and then you're gonna just, sunk into other kind of stereotype and biases. Oh, because women are good with communication, so she should be the head of the communication department. Or because he's so good with, spatial reasoning or multitask, he should be the head of the engineering department. And then we come back to, ground zero again. That's so dangerous, it is. So
when
what was your question again? I don't know why I'm here. But
when I've been making the argument, totally unfounded in scientific evidence, just by mere layperson observation, that if you look at world politics in the last 5 years, it appears that countries who are led by female leaders are handling difficult.
Oh my God. Here we go again.
Yeah, there we go. Right. So when I make the argument that women-led countries are doing better because of female leadership, then you're calling me out and saying this is nonsense. It has nothing to do with it. Okay.
I don't call it nonsense. I want good statistics.
Okay.
And if you only make that observation out of your personal experience, then it's just an observation from you, Christian. Right. I would just say, wow, that's your observation. That's fine. It's not grounded in statistics. It's not grounded in research. And you are entitled to your opinion, but I am also entitled to my belief as well. We have confirmation bias. If we already have a bias that female leaders are better, then we also look for evidence that fit our stereotype. I mean, the brain is amazing in that way. I'm trying to talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm trying to talk about filling out the information that is not relevant. I mean, we can only, consciously pick up a very small amount of information with our consciousness. And the rest of the information around us is being processed by our unconsciousness or subconsciousness, whatever you're calling it. It's like a secret army of secretary that we have silently registering, taking in all the information that we cannot consciously process. For example, I'm sitting in my room right now and I don't know what's going on at the back. Normally, I don't know what's going on at the back, but I know that my brain is doing that for me and store it in the borrow of subconsciousness for me. So it's really important what we let our brain process consciously and consciously, because we can also try to do that. If we know that we have a bias for women as leaders, we can also try to, the way I said, having counter stereotype. So we can ask our brain, hey, you used to do that subconsciously. From now on, do it consciously. From now on, pay attention to good male leaders. From now on, pay attention to men who are doing well.
And even if I acknowledge that you allow me to have my opinion, I want to make clear that I don't have an opinion. I only had an observation. I'm looking for confirmation for evidence to confirm it or to lead me away from the observation. So I'm still in research mode. That's why I was asking.
Good point. Opinion is different from observation.
So you have something prepared for us. I know Brett has some secret images in the back that he wouldn't show me before we went live because he was afraid that I might lose my marble.
Not the first one, Brett, because we've gone too far from that one. But the second one is a brain plasticity. We already mentioned that concept before.
Ooh,
But I think
what is
that's
this?
why
What is all this?
yeah, no, don't worry. I'm going to explain to you. I mean, my undergraduate student understand this, so it's easy.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting my capacity to understand this.
Now that's so simple. So we talked about brain plasticity before, and this is an image that I created to make it really easy for my students to understand. Some of my clients love that so much they actually print it out and put it on their desk. Just remind us of the power that we have. So in the first part of the image, you see two brains trying to communicate with each other. So in this way, you see that they do not actually touch each other. They communicate with each other by sending to each other something called neurotransmitters. So it's like the messages that they try to send to each other. And if you go to the second part of the image, that's when we have this kind of communication going on and on. So then we have more neurotransmitters sending through the synapse. And also you have more those little tulip look alike things that's called the receptors. So you have more receptors to catch those neurotransmitters. And you also have the base bigger as well, which is a dendrite. Now, is it that the brain is trying to accommodate the kind of new behavior that we have? And then in the end, you have a new spine. So this is a dendritic spine. You have a new branch, so to speak, because the communication has gone for too long, and it's going to say, okay, now there's so much, we probably have a little bit more room for you guys to talk with each other. And that's how neurons talk with each other, communicate with each other, and sending out messages. And if that's going for a very long time, we may have, change in connectivity, change in even structure as well. And because of this, we are able to two things. We are able to adapt to a new culture. So if you go to, like when I moved from my childhood home to Australia, to America, to the Netherlands, this kind of plasticity allowed me to adapt to a new culture. I know that in Holland I should do this. I know that in Australia I should do that. However, the second thing is it's even more important, and I emphasize this a lot. It's not just adapting, creating a new culture and changing a culture as well. If I know that bias is wrong, I know how to change it. If I know that sustainability is good, I know that I should be part of that movement. So we can create a new culture and changing the culture as well. We are not the product of the culture. We are not the helpless kind of a victim that this is our culture and we can do nothing about that. We can also change it with the brain plasticity. So that's really interesting insight that give me the power. And I always tell my students that you are not the victim of the culture, because if you are the product of the culture, then I cannot expect you to be the change that we want to see in the world, right? If you want to be the change you want to see in the world, then you need to be that change. And I'd like to show that little videos as well. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I sent Brett earlier
Who?
Oh, that's the first one, but there's a video that I normally show my students.
Yes. Okay. Let me try and play. I'm going to do this by sharing my screen.
While he does it, I picked up something. You mentioned that Amsterdam seems to be the place where you spend most time with. Is that why you explained this receptor as a tulip shape? I was totally taken by your Dutch.
You pick on it. This is great.
What I was thinking when I saw those images is I was going to appreciate, Mai, that you used the Pac-Man images from our childhood game of Pac-Man. That looked very good. I mean, it's very nice.
We can see that. That's amazing that you can see that our brain is, picking things based on our experience. And that is why we don't have one reality. I mean, each of us has a different reality based on our experience, right? Our context is amazingly powerful, shaping the way that we look at the reality. I just have one image and I see a tulip, Brett see a Pac-Man. I can totally relate to that. Big fan of it.
Yeah, no, it's a great game. So, okay, let me just try and get back here and share this with you guys if I can. Share screen, and we'll go there, and then
This is
Oh my
live,
goodness.
people.
This is live. This is live. What about? Is this what we're looking at here? Wow. Is it going to play? I don't think it's going to play.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has a bit of a problem before, but if it is not
Spinning wheel
playing,
too.
I would like you to watch that later on. Probably put it in the comments so people can look at that later on. It's
I will.
a
Yes,
beautiful.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
you can
I'll
also
stop sharing. Yeah, it's not playing, but I'm going to post this in the comments, and we'll post it. There we go.
Yeah.
Bang. There it is, and you can click on that. So it's quite and is that actually a real image of the brain working at work?
It's not it's a video. It's a time-lapse video of, I think it is a membrane anchored green fluorescent protein of a red hippocampal neuron. Okay, that's full mouth. But it kind of captured 120-hour time-lapse imaging of those hippocampal neurons in 1 or 2 minutes, or probably a few seconds, and just want to show people of how flexible the neurons can be. Of course, in this case, it's not a human neurons, but anyway, it kind of gives the idea that this is going on in your brain day in and day out, and it can grow from a small garden to a big forest, and we should be very aware of the direction that is growing, because we can actually shape that as well. We can influence the way that our brain is developing in a certain direction.
It's fascinating.
It is
fascinating.
And
I think
Yes, it is.
well, this is just from the simple. But I've got a new term for myself, which I think is very. I'm going to use this more often. I'm a neurosexist. Now it makes me sound a little bit kind of mysterious. Not rather than just plain old sexist. I'm a neurosexist.
You mean you justify your sexism by sounding very smart?
Yes, at least I'm an intelligent sexist.
Right.
Well, that's part of it. Well, anyway, this is amazing. We could sit here for ages and talk about this. I mean, I find this fascinating, and I probably am always very conscious when I speak to my clients about this, because what I've learned from you and others that we talk to in this field that do this work, that are in neuroscience and things like Shannon Murphy Robinson, I've gleaned whatever I can to apply it to the work that I do, and I'm always cognizant that my clients are, when they're sitting in the real time setting of a training room, sometimes their eyes might glaze over, but every now and again I get somebody who goes, well, this is fascinating. Like, I really want to learn this, and it does have real application in how they're going to go to their new country and manage their multicultural team, and be aware of their own biases, and be aware of how they can reformulate their brain or reshape their thinking to make them a better leader and in an organization. So that's what I do with it for my simple approach to it, as somebody who has completely no idea what it's all about. But I think it's an important bit of understanding that we need to take forward and dig into and be curious about.
Well, it was fascinating to me, because
yes, it's about awareness, and then yeah.
We have a bit of a delay, and I just want to say thank you for being available for us at your morning and educating us about our triangular mistakes. I will never look at triangles the same way, and I will never look at Brett in the same way. This neurosexist guy. Thank you for educating us.
What did you do to yourself?
I don't know.
He brought it up.
Now, thank you for giving us this opportunity to share. We can talk for days on that, but I can share the lecture that I have on stereotypes, so maybe our audience can have a look at that. We'll send to Brett later on.
I'd love to have that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mai, and
thank you.
In true Aussie spirit, see you later, mate. Have a great day.
See you later.
Yeah, mate. Thank you.
See you, mate. Bye.
Hey, thanks, guys. I need to jump into my next appointment right
No worries.
now. Great.
Bye now.
Talk soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye.